What's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome to a Zoom training you will not forget. I want you to take out a piece of paper. I want you to take out a pen. We're going to give you some notes. We're going to go right to work. And we have something that has never been done before. So I guess you could say it's kind of historic, right? It's never been done before. And the reason it's never been done before is because we literally had to catch lightning in a bottle for this to happen. We have, as you know, a very special guest here live here with us tonight on this Zoom training. And what we're going to do is the room continues to fill up. I'm so happy to see everybody. I'm really happy to see all of our doctors. Look at you, Dr. Roach. Look at you. I hope, Dr. Lizette, look at you. Yeah, I got your email this week. That was great. That was so cool. And Dr. Lincoln, look at you, my man. So we got so many of our family here. Dr. Schultz, this is a family affair. It really is. We got so many of our doctors here. I love that. So what I'm going to do with your approval is this. We're going to go right into our slides, and then we're going to kick it off. I know I'm going to go a little fast tonight, but we even have Dr. Tominski with us. Hey, look at you. Right there you are. Someone's going in the Ring of Honor this year. Yeah, yeah. We got some 2025 Ring of Honor doctors here. So this is a very special group, and this is a very special training. So let's do this. Let me share my screen with you first and foremost, and let's see if you can see this. Can you see this? Let's see. Can you see this? Tell me if you can see this. Can everybody see this? Raise your hand if you can. All right, beautiful, perfect. So I'm going to make my screen just a little smaller here. And as we do this, perfect. Then I'm going to move it over here, and we're going to go right to work. Are you ready? Here we go. All right. So welcome, everyone, to our Zoom meeting. This is live here. And if you're curious where we're coming from, we're actually in three different locations. We're on the south end of Palm Beach County, Florida. We're on the north end of Palm Beach County, Florida. And we're actually in the great state of New York, our home. Yeah, if you can't tell from the accent. So, the title, very simple, the dysneuropathy formula. And what I would love, love, love for you to do is I'd love for you to take notes. Now, 95% of you here with us right here, right now, know exactly who we are. But I never take that for granted. So if we've never met before, my name is Dr. Perry Bard. And with Dr. Eric Kaplan, we are so honored, we are so fortunate, we're so blessed to be able to put this together for you, to give you content, tools, information, and maybe a little bit of energy too, right? A little bit of energy because, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I think it's so empowering to get a little energy and to be a little bit more enthusiastic about what you do. We call those the 3 E's. And we just talked about the 3 P's before. And if you got here a little bit early, you got that as well. So we want to talk a little bit about, before we bring on our very, very special guest, which is the understatement of the year, I want to talk about two very, very special trainings. And we're doing this up front because the last time we did this, doctors said, well, why'd you wait to the end? So we're going to do it up front for you guys. Okay, so mark this down. The first training is about the business of non-surgical spinal decompression. Now, why is this important? This is so important because obviously, as Dr. Sid Williams used to say, you have your left hand, you have your right hand, you have your business hand, you have your serving hand. And there's so many doctors now that bought a table, 2 tables, 3 tables, and they want to fill up these tables. So they want to be able to attract better market share. They want to create better portals of entry. They want to wow their patients. They want to learn how to create a waiting list practice for non-surgical spinal decompression. So there's a training that allows for that. It is the business of spinal decompression success. It's on Saturday, November 8th, in, of all great places, Las Vegas, Nevada. How incredible. Write the website down, vegaschirovent.com. Registrations are only taken over the phone. So if you do want to attend, go to the website, but you're going to have to call and speak to one of our team members to try to secure a seat. Now, I will tell you this, as of right now, they are 90% full. 90% full. Now, if you remember, when last time we did this, we were probably like 70% full. Now we're 90% full, and I have a feeling possibly by the end of the Zoom meeting, we might be at 100%. Now, what we're asking potentially to do is if the hotel, the property could actually add more seats. We don't know. Fingers crossed. But, you know, the demand is extensive here. It's on Saturday, November 8th, because it's obviously a kickstart for 2026 and the best way to end 2025. Las Vegas, Nevada. Obviously, if you've been following Dr. Kaplan and I long enough, you know there's no training on the planet like this. We give you so many tools, so much content, so much material. Put 1,000 pages of content in your hand. That's right, 1,000 pages of materials in your hands so you can hit the ground running. There's nothing to sign. There's no contracts. There's no pressure. There's no obligation. You're in a room with the most entrepreneurial chiropractors on the planet, learning how to deliver a better patient result, to wow your patients, and to fill up your practice beyond measure, because there's an abundance of patients, as we talked about before we start, that are getting, dangerous opioids today, risky epidural injections, often unnecessary back surgeries. Las Vegas is a pretty cool place to come to a seminar. I have to tell you, we do have a lot of fun. We actually did it this year. It was completely sold out. And we told everybody that if there's a chance we can come back in 2025, we will do everything within our power. And the moon and the stars align that we were able to do that. So try to get a seat if you can, if you want to learn about how to build, grow, and master spinal decompression, how to build, grow, and master spinal disc cases, how to build, grow, and master neuropathy cases, and to fill up your practice beyond measure, and to build the cash model. This is where it's all about. It'll happen one more time in 2025. That's it. Then the doors close, and that's it. So do everything you can to get there. If you already have a seat, congratulations. We're going to have such a party. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be a blast. 5-star, you know the way we do it. Las Vegas, vegaschirovet.com. Call the number there. And then the second training, of course, which is the purpose of why we're all here tonight, which is the National Spinal Decompression Certification. Congratulations if you already have a seat. They're getting close to filling up the room. As you know, it will be completely sold out. Dr. Kaplan and I have been teaching this since 2012. This is our 13th year teaching it. It's the only university certification in the world that actually is a CEU event. So if you like CEUs, you can pick up about 9 of them there, depending upon your state. But this is not about CEUs. This is about mastery. This is about conviction. This is about confidence. This is about congruence. This is about capturing, conversion. Did I say that right? Capture, conversion, and closing patients that are looking at other options. And at the end of the day, if you have non-surgical spinal decompression, you may be a better option for them. It is a cash model that we teach. And the way we do it is we bring in the best speakers in the world. We bring in speakers that don't speak to any other chiropractic audience in the world. In other words, and you'll see that here. It's a 5-star event. It is at the Trump National Grand Ballroom. It is a Life University program. Dr. Kaplan and I and all the instructors donate our time, so Life University can raise those funds for the future of our profession and to pay this forward. We bring in some of the absolute best speakers on the planet. If you were with us 2 weeks ago, we had the chairman of the board of the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners on a Zoom meeting talking about risk management, compliance, and how to bulletproof your practice, obviously. And he will be one of the instructors there. So listen, building a better mousetrap makes sense from A to Z. And we teach you how to do that. In addition to that, we're also giving a 250-page manual, brand spanking new. The only way to get this manual is have to be live there on Saturday, October 25th to get a 250-page manual. It's brand spanking new. You've never seen some of this content before. We're so excited to give this away. And as I said, that's the poster for the event. And orthopedic surgeons, neuroradiologists, neurologists, NFL stars, 3 Super Bowl rings. Yeah. And we've got, oh my God, I'm not even going to tell you anything more. I'm just going to let Dr. Kaplan do that tonight. And let's talk a little bit about our featured guest speaker. Featured guest speaker is, oh gosh, where do I begin? I think if you got here a little bit earlier, you heard the simple fact that we tried for 10 years to get him to the National Spinal Decompression Certification. 10 years. And we couldn't do it. He was too busy, traveled. His schedule is extensive. And if you saw who he treats and who flies into New York to be evaluated by him, your jaw would drop, your mandible would fall to the floor a little bit, because you would say, oh my gosh, this is the guy. Because he sees the worst of the worst, the toughest of the tough, and the most challenging neurological cases in the world. And last year, we were able to bring him for the first time ever to the National Spinal Decompression Certification. Standing ovation. They went nuts. It was so incredible. He is the former chief of neurology at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine. That in and of itself and by itself is good enough. But guess what? He's got more. He was also the chief assistant. He was also the chief of neurology at the Bronx Lebanon Hospital, chief assistant professor at New York Medical Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, which is as big as it gets. In New York City, that is as big as it gets. Cornell Weill Medical Center there. And his resume is just an incredible, unmatched resume. He's an acclaimed author, and he is our featured speaker. And if you don't know about him, you're about to learn, because you're going to hear it right from from the source here. So this is stratified air here tonight. In other words, this is his story. This has never been done before. So we actually had to make a lot of things happen to actually make this Zoom training happen for you guys. And we're so excited to be able to do that. He's been called a lot of things, but one of the things that he's actually known for is he's part Sherlock Holmes and part Sigmund Freud. In other words, he has a unique gift and innate ability to really get down to the core essentials as to the root cause of disease. In other words, every patient is different. In other words, if you think there's 52 cards in a deck, well, as you know, you could add a couple of zeros to that because that's the amount of different types of conditions that are out there. And he is the ultimate medical sleuth, if you understand what we're talking about. He is the ultimate medical detective, and he has done things in the neuropathy world and the disc world as well that is really, really unmatched. Basically, his number one best-selling books. They're all incredible. The first one, The Brain Wellness Plan, that was the first one that came out, and that's where basically he hit the playing field, and there was no turning back after that. He's had the highest level of endorsements from the medical world. In other words, the biggest of the big, the best of the best, go to Dr. J. Lombard for his counsel, for his advice, for his insight, and for his medical management of patients. And whether it's Dr. Rudy Tanzi, the head of genetics at Mass General, Harvard, it doesn't get any bigger. Dr. Mehmet Oz, who was on the cover of Dr. Lombard's book at a time when, basically he was never endorsed. I don't even know if he still endorses books, but Dr. Lombard was one of the first, the great Dr. Goldman, and of course everybody knows who Mark Hyman is, and I can go on and on. There's really nobody like him on this planet in terms of neurology. And if it's cool with everybody, what I would love, love, love to do is we're going to bring him on. And what we're going to do is we're going to kick it off with, there he is. Oh, yeah. Hey, hey. Well, if you were in attendance at the National Spinal Decompression Certification back in 2023, where history was made, you learned that not only does he have a resume and a pedigree in neurology that's second to none, but what he also had was a personal relationship with somebody by the name of Dr. Damadian. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Damadian is, you could do a little research, but Dr. Damadian is actually the doctor that actually invented MRI. Now, why is that important? Well, because through the utilization of MRI studies, Dr. Lombard had basically an inside look as to the incredible utilization or underutilization of MRIs. There's so many different things he can talk about, but at the end of the day, if anybody has conjoined the study of non-surgical spinal disc decompression, the study of disc disease, herniated disc, bulging disc, prolapsed disc, protruded disc, sequestered discs, and its synergy with peripheral neuropathy, it is the great Dr. J. Lombard. So welcome to the Zoom meeting, Dr. Lombard.
I don't know how I could ever live that introduction down. So I don't know. Thank you very much. Sure. How can I help? I was thinking about what a good agenda would be, and I realized that there's probably not a good agenda, meaning that we may just want to ask people to ask me anything about anything because I'm basically singly focused on the brain, and I am at the point in my life where I love to teach, I love to explain things, because Einstein once said, keep things simple, but not too simple. So I'm happy to, whatever you want me for, you got me.
Well, I love that. And there's so many different directions absolutely, as you know, there's so many different directions that we can go in. But the magic of tonight, what makes us so unique is, as you know, we did a series of interviews with you. And we'll talk about how some of the attendees here can actually get access to those interviews. But my favorite thing of the interviews was the banter, the ping pong that you had with Dr. Kaplan? Because Dr. Kaplan has a very, how can I say, a very innate, very in tune, very specific way of asking questions that
Got
are
it.
relative and specific to your wheelhouse and
Okay.
specialty of disc disease and also neuropathy. So, Dr. K, would you be so kind to take it away?
Well, listen, I didn't get as good an introduction as Jay did, so I'm not happy. Jay Lashanatova. So it's a very unique thing that we do, and I always tell people it's our love and dedication, and yes, working with Jay really is enlightening because you know there's two levels of intelligence. There's people that are smart but cold, and then there's people that are smart and have a big heart. As big as our book will be, which will be over 830 pages, I will say that Dr. Lombard's heart is bigger. And there's so much research that we
Sweet.
work on and we discuss, Jay. And listen, I follow, from the Feinberg study, which coordinates bulging discs and neuropathy, because one of the things, Jay, I want people to know tonight, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, is how neuropathy is not just selective for diabetics, that there's over 20 million Americans that suffer from neuropathy, and neuropathy can also be a cause, I apologize, a cause of many symptoms that people see on a daily basis in their office, from numbness and tingling. I mean, if I look at the definition of neuropathy, it says a disease or dysfunction of one or more peripheral nerves, typically causing numbness or weakness. Well, you know what's amazing, Dr. Lombard? We deal with that all the time. And one of your geniuses, and I can't wait, to see you in October. And for those people that are not certified, they need to understand the importance of it, as relayed by Dr. LaRusso. We'll get into that more, but having Dr. Lombard there and having orthopedic surgeons there and coordinating it, which goes along with the Binder study, the Binder study, the Yale study. And, we know that, that when it comes to Jay, Doc, you talked about vitamins. And
Uh,
I think that's a great acronym that everybody should write down. And I'm going to tell you why, Dr. Lombard. It is, there's two levels of patients. Let's agree on this, right? There's those that come into your office and you say, what's wrong with them? And I always say the D in doctor stands for detective. And
right.
listen, why do I say that? I actually got that from a television show that you did, where you were actually called Sherlock Holmes, that you're the guy that they seek to make diagnosis for the undiagnosable. And as chiropractors, we, Dr. Lombard, we understand the brain connection, because we understand that many times the subluxations begin at level C1, C2, which creates neuropathy. So when I'm dealing with Sherlock Holmes, because I say the D in doctor stands for detective, and the R stands for results. And the way to get results is to get referrals. And I always say, Dr. Lombard, what's one new patient worth to them? So by utilizing your acronym of vitamins, it kind of helps them teach neuropathy. So talk about your vitamin acronym, which I think is genius, by the way, and it's in the book, by the way.
So that acronym you could use pretty much for any condition. So V stands for vascular, right? So if you see a person who complains of pain or numbness in their lower extremities or their feet, always take a very good vascular history, because a lot of times you may see what's called ischemic changes in the peripheral nervous system. And that's where things like nitric oxide really are significantly helpful. I stands for either iatrogenic, which means drug-induced neuropathies. Mostly suspect those in patients that are on chemotherapeutic drugs, like Taxols, which will produce, neuropathy. I can also stand for infections. And probably, there are acute infections, and then there's also chronic infections. Of course, Lyme disease can produce what's called a small fiber neuropathy, where patients will experience a lot of pain, but not much in the way of motor weakness. T is trauma, which is really, I think, the hallmark of chiropractic practice, because when you have trauma to any portion of the nervous system, you're likely to have, a peripheral dysfunction, whether it's radicular or bilateral, unilateral. The connection between trauma and neuropathies is something that are really interchangeable. There's a lot of overlap between them, but they're also important differential diagnoses, because a disc herniation may lead to a different surgical recommendation than in compressions that are causing neuropathy that are not at the level of the spinal cord itself. Metabolic causes, the most obvious things is diabetes, B12 deficiency, predominantly in alcoholics, thiamine deficiency. And the thing that I focus on in my research are autoimmune and degenerative diseases of both the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system.
Well, Jay, Dr. Lombard, it's amazing because, we talk about, people have to understand that, the brain, disc, spine, nerve connection. As we started, disease of dysfunction of one or more nerves. And we know how many sets of nerves travel through the intervertebral column. And that's why the Feinberg study was very interesting about bulging discs and spinal disorders. Many times, Dr. Lombard, people don't understand how a person that might come into their office might have a bulge or a herniation. And in my opinion, the definitive test to find the bulge or herniation is an MRI. And I tell patient doctors all the time, an MRI is the key to being a great detective. If I was an internist, Dr. Lombard, I would want to have, blood, because that's my pathway. But, we're spine people, and not to have an MRI is definitive, And then you talk about the Distard and Weiss study, and they talked about, how sciatica, which was very common in our world, is also often a form of neuropathy. So that many times that people have disc problems also have neuropathic problems. And that's where, not only do we talk about electroanalgesia, not only do we talk about shockwave, we talk about laser. Talk a little bit about modalities besides, the B vitamins, which you mentioned, which is phenomenal. So you gave the acronym of vitamins, and then you mentioned vitamins.
Right.
And I know with Dr. Bard, you've been working on a very good amino acid nitric oxide supplement. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure, that's a great question. So everyone knows that arginine, as an amino acid, is the primary nitric oxide donor amino acid. The problem with arginine, quite frankly, is that it produces dilation both of endothelial cells, but also neuronal cells. And when you dilate neuronal cells through nitric oxide, that produces excessive glutamate-based neurotoxicity, right? So how do you get the benefits of arginine as a nitric oxide donor while avoiding the potential excitotoxic effects of too much arginine? And there is an amino acid which is derived from sake. And the reason how I discovered this is because Perry takes me to all these very expensive, Japanese restaurants, gets me sake, gets me thinking about new discoveries. So this compound is a version of arginine that has arginine's beneficial effects for cardiovascular disease, but has neurovascular effects, which are obviously most pertinent to my practice, including stress reduction, chronic pain reduction, and even neuroprotective effects in animal models. It's called agmatine, AGMATINE.
Well, it's funny, Dr. Lombard. We actually, we've been working with you, and we're very excited about the new book, and that'll be out, early part of next year. It's now with the publishers. It's 837 pages, and it's unbelievable, and it's such a tribute to the work that you do for our profession as well as your profession. Listen, I always say, Dr. Lombard, what is our legacy? And part of what we do and what I love about you is, your purpose, your passion, and your perseverance. And I always tell people in neuropathy or disc problems, there's 4 key steps to feeling better. One is you have to rejuvenate by increasing blood flow. And you talked about that with the amino acids. And then, we have to stimulate the nerves. And if you want, we can talk a little bit about shockwave and laser and electroanaesthesia, because I know, people don't realize that you're familiar, that we try to find, the non-drug approach first. We want to activate through therapy and empower by reducing inflammation. So my keys are rejuvenate by increasing blood flow, stimulate the nerves, activate through therapy, and empower by decreasing inflammation. So let's talk about some therapies that can help people that have neuropathy.
Yep. So probably the most common neuropathy that you're likely to see, particularly in a geriatric practice, is proprioceptive dysfunction. And that proprioceptive dysfunction is what puts them at very high risk for falling. So some of the modalities that I've studied, really what I call them biophysical approaches, because they're non-medicinal. It's the idea that by producing some stimulation, whether it's magnetic stimulation, ultrasound stimulation, or near infrared, that you're activating these pathways in ways that you couldn't otherwise do with other types of therapies, whether it's drug or even chiropractic. And I want to tie that in particularly to meeting Dr. Demedian, because one of the things that he taught me, which is probably, I think, the greatest discovery of the last decade, is what's called the glymphatic system. And the glymphatic system is a lymphatic system of the brain. So when you talk about nerve root problems, and you talk about neuropathy, and you talk about neurological diseases in general, one of the key aspects that ties us into chiropractic therapy is that there's an interruption of the glymphatic flow, which he was seeing how to measure. So that's I got to meet him in the last year and a half of his life and work with him. And the principle, when you talk about it, is so obvious. But if you bring up to most people, glymphatic dysfunction, many doctors, including researchers, have heard about it before, even though it's probably a principal pathology.
So this is so incredible, because one of the things that I love when you look at this is, as an allopathically trained physician, you expanded your horizons years ago, and you knew there was a much bigger game to be played with regards to the connection between a biomechanical dysfunction, in other words, a primary disc condition, and a neuropathy, whether it is whether it is a physical condition to the disc, a biomechanical condition to the actual physical portion of the actual cartilage in the spine, hence diagnosed through MRI studies, number one. Number two, whether this is some type of claudication. In other words, is this a vascular claudication? Is this a neurological entrapment? And then number three, one of the things I love that you do is when you bring in the metabolic factors to be able to look at the patient globally. And, one of the things that you did incredibly, which was really so foresighted, one of the things you did was your ability to ask better questions. In other words, to get down to the root cause and how, believe it or not, and I know this is going to sound simple, and I would just love, I know we don't have that much time, but I would love for you to talk about the connection between stress and a primary spinal disc condition and its relationship with neuropathy in the forms of not just conventional stress, but stress on the level that you know it.
So we can talk about 45 minutes on that question, but I'll try to summarize it very, very simply. There's an area of the brain called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that maybe everyone remembers from medical school. It's called HPA for short. And its physiological function is when you have acute stress, it causes the release of certain catecholamines, mainly norepinephrine, but also an adrenal hormone called cortisol. And the problem is that most of our stress conditions to date are chronic, not acute, which means that the vasoconstriction that's caused by stress, in addition to the effects that it has on cortisol, ends up producing a frustrated inflammatory state because cortisol generally reduces inflammation. But actually, paradoxically, in chronic stress with elevated cortisol, it's the opposite effect, where the receptors become desensitized to anti-inflammatory agents. So that's kind of why I think assessing the temperature of the tissue that you're looking at treating. And one of the things that Dr. Kaplan taught me is that there are new technologies that are old technologies that are called thermography. And thermography can really give you a very, very bird's eye view of potential hot areas, which are usually associated with acute injury, but opposite that would be cold. And those cold areas are what probably people would respond better to the near infrared laser therapy. So before you go and use a laser therapy, you want to know that you're applying it to an area that's cold to increase blood flow, not to apply it to an area that's already acutely inflamed.
Well, Dr. Lombard, that's the Dr. Chow study, which is pretty amazing. And then we can talk about the Ferglot study from the State University of New York, who talks about EDRF, meaning endothelial derived relaxed factor. And he talks about, not only the nitrous oxide effect, but the red light therapy effect. And you also talked about balance, which is Dr. Murphy from the Mayo Clinic. So we know what we talked about, Dr. Lombard. Tonight, we talked about the power of vitamins, supplements, and your acronym, which is so far so genius. I'm like, I wish I would have invented that acronym because I love acronyms. Barry knows I'm the king of acronyms, and now you're above me, which pisses me off. But I love you for that.
It'd be fun. Out of all the research breakthroughs that I've tried to accomplish in my life, I'm only known for the acronym of vitamin for differential diagnosis.
Well, that's not true, Dr. Lombard. Fortunately, you're known for a lot. And I'll tell you another thing. As we talk about now the world, many, 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 many years ago, there was a division between the medical profession and the chiropractic profession. And I don't think anybody has held the torch better by putting allopathic conventional medicine together than you, who studied your whole life of doing that. And that's why when I talk about like studies like the Murphy study, or I talk about the Feinberg study, or the Berry study, or the Rochebaum study, which all kind of understands that this neuropathy connection. And I talk about the solution that we try to utilize at NeuroDoc, which is red light therapy, of course, laser therapy, which goes to the Chow study, We talk about specific nutrition because you mentioned the vitamins that people might need. Progressive decompression therapy for those that have a bulge or herniated disc, nerve stimulation through electroanesthesia, or pulse shockwave therapy. Do you want to talk a little bit about shockwave therapy and why it can help in neuropathy?
So shockwave therapy, I think, is labeled improperly, and I think
I like that. I agree.
If they need to rebrand it, not that I can tell them what to do, but the concept of shock therapy is that vibrational impulses to targeted areas of muscle spindles, particularly in spastic states. So a spasticity from a biological level is a absolute refusal of separation of actin and myosin, right? So what happens is the muscle stays continuously contracted because of the actin-myosin bonds. So what shockwave therapy does is it literally breaks up those protein bonds that produce muscle spasticity. It's really that simple.
It actually, Doc, you and I are going to work on this, and we're going to talk to AJ Singh. And with you, I just developed, we're going to call it CST therapy or cell stimulation therapy. Because shockwave really, it's really not, because who wants to be shocked?
Exactly.
One of the things you talked about was when you talked about thermography earlier, one of the things that I liked about thermography, otherwise, one of the definitive tests for neuropathy was a needle EMG. And anyone who's never had an EMG, it's not comfortable. And now with thermography, like you said, old science becoming new science, you can actually do a test in a few minutes. We're going to do this, Jay. Dr. Lombard, I apologize, but I know you so well. We're going to do this in October at the national certification, because I think that national certification is so important that they learn the science, understanding the science of neuropathy. So this is phenomenal. And what we'll do is get that cell stimulation therapy, because we know that cell stimulate, because what it does, Dr. Lombard, we know that ATP stores energy in the cells. And what it does, it stimulates the mitochondria, which also people don't realize that cell stimulation therapy, formerly known as shockwave, helps the body develop its own stem cells. I know you got to go, but do you want to talk about that before you leave?
So
how the body can produce its own stem cells naturally.
So I think I sent you that study, maybe. No?
You did send me that study, and I read it.
Right. Well, I don't remember anything about it, to be honest.
I remember.
Just a little bit. It's the idea, very at a high level, is that for stem cells to differentiate, they have to have the appropriate stimulation. Just like a little kid, has a great potential, but if they're not raised properly, they can go off the reservation. So the idea is when you combine stem cell therapy with these various modalities, and there's been work also on the synergistic effects of near infrared with stem cell as well, that you're basically just giving the stem cells a better chance to live than they would otherwise, because they're increasing ATP levels.
And that's why we're going to rename it, Doc. And we're going to talk to people from MedRay, people that you and I love, about and I'm going to write, you and I are going to jointly with Dr. Bard, we're going to write an article on cell stimulation therapy. Shockwave is not a good name, but it's like electroanesthesia. It's electric, but that's not alone what it does. Laser, says a lot, but not what it does. But cell stimulation therapy is what it does. And, I know this is an important night for both of us.
Yep.
It was set up a long time ago. And I just got to say, Dr. Lombard, you're such a muse for me. And I say that because, always talking with you and working with you and learning from you, And that's what we're here to do, to train doctors to understand that the D in doctor stands for detective, and who can they better learn from than Sherlock Holmes? So
So this is
Sherlock,
very cool. So I don't know if you know this, but we had to pull Dr. Lombard away from a very important dinner tonight to just give us this little window to be able to give everybody here who's so fortunate enough to be with us on the Zoom training a little insight, a little taste, a minuscule appetizer of the main course that takes place on October 25th. And so, Dr. Lombard, I know you have to run. And think of it like the Johnny Carson show. Remember back in the day, for those, I don't want to date myself, but the real guests, they only come on and they don't stay till the end. They have to leave early, if you know what I mean, because they're superstars.
Oh, stop.
And
Wait.
so for everybody that's on, we've got an incredible treat for you, an amazing thing. So we don't want you to leave. We know Dr. Lombard has to take off a little bit earlier, but I will tell you this before he leaves, and that is this. If you want to see the most incredible fan club that I've ever seen in my 38 years in this profession, um, be it the National Spinal Decompression Certification, because after Dr. Lombard spoke and was at the most incredible cocktail hour, I don't know if you know, but we do the most incredible cocktail hour after the National Spinal Decompression Certification. It's free. The best, I guess you would say bar stuff, right? The best like open bar that you would ever have there. It's outdoors, it's a party, it's a celebration, it's a revival, it's a renewal, and it is a gathering of like-minded doctors that are committed to saving their patients from dangerous opioids and, as we mentioned, risky epidural injections and often unnecessary back surgeries, discectomies, microdiscectomies, laminectomies, spinal fusions, foraminotomies. That's what he does. That's what he does. And if you want to actually meet him live, because he's going to bring a lecture that you have not seen before and will blow your mind. Let me jump back in real quick because I want to show you what we want to share with you here live here today for staying with us and more. And so this is actually a big announcement. We're actually making a very, very big announcement here. Um, I think you got a little small taste of it, but for the first time ever, both Dr. Kaplan and I are so incredibly honored to show this to you live here because this will, can I say, blow your mind. Now, many of you know this. Many of you know that the ultimate guide, the ultimate book on non-surgical spinal decompression was written by both Dr. Kaplan, myself, in alignment, in conjunction with, and we discussed this actually, if you were on our Zoom meeting a little bit earlier, with the most incredible medical researcher on the history of spinal decompression. His name is Dr. Norman Shealy, MD, PhD, neurosurgeon, Duke trained and Harvard educator, a resume unlike no others. He has the most medical research in this. And fortunately, the moon and the stars were in alignment, and we were able to actually secure him in a series of interviews, and thus was basically the nucleus of the Ultimate Spinal Decompression book, which is now getting ready for its fourth printing. Fourth printing. I know it's crazy, and it's 800 pages. So not all the time does lightning strike twice, but in the genius of Dr. Kaplan, who said, you know what? I've got a great idea. I've got a great idea. I love when he says that. He goes, I got a great idea that now the sister book to this. Now imagine this. I hope you're sitting down for this one. The Ultimate Peripheral Neuropathy book. Yes, you're reading this right. It is the Bible of non-surgical spinal decompression in conjunction with peripheral neuropathy. The two are hand in hand. They are synergistic. And yes, it is 800 pages. It's actually over 800 pages. So this is actually a picture. And if you want to take a picture of this with your phone, you can, because this was already sent to the publisher. This is actually at the publisher as we speak for release, scheduled in January 2026. And if you are at the National Spinal Decompression on October 25th, you will have first access to this. We're actually doing something very special for the attendees who attend on Saturday, October 25th. You see the website down there. If you're not registered, decompressioncertified.com. Let me tell you something. This is the end all be all in peripheral neuropathy. And it's written really as we mentioned, the sister version to the ultimate spinal decompression book, 1,600 pages in the study of disc and nerve with an abundance of research studies that, and you want to talk about the genius move of all time. Dr. Kaplan says, when we put this thing together, believe it or not, we took it to the publisher. The publisher said, we have a little problem. I said, what's the problem? They said, it's 1,600 pages. I said, yeah, both books are 1,600. And they said, no, it's 1,600 pages. All the research studies, everything you've put together, everything you've given us, 1,600 pages. So they said, you got to cut some of it. Dr. Kaplan said, I'm not cutting anything. You know what he said? We're going to make QR codes and we're going to stick them in the book so you can download every research study in neuropathy. Mind blowing. Wait till you see how this lines up and how genius this is. And as I mentioned, it is the coolest thing. And so if you have access, obviously, if you're there in Vegas with us, you can get access to things a little bit earlier. If it's not already sold out by the end of this Zoom meeting, you have the date, Saturday, November 8th, Vegas Chiro event. You have the phone number. The only way to register is you have to call that phone number. But we encourage you to go to the website to actually learn a little bit more. But call the number. Speak to Lacey. Speak to Michael. Speak to Stephanie. Speak to any one of our team members who can see if they can secure a seat for you. They'll send you a written confirmation of it if there's any seats left. And we're so excited for this because, listen, chiropractic and decompression are hand in hand. And if you're a DC, or what we call a decompression chiropractor, you see how that works? DC stands for decompression chiropractor. It also stands for disc chiropractor. If you're a DC, you want to raise your game by understanding the best in medical research, clinical data, all the latest research studies, all the best ways to treat patients. Oh, by the way, if you're at the National Spinal Decompression Certification, we're bringing in some of the biggest, heaviest hitters that have ever, they don't speak to any other groups. These are like private doctors that are just running multi-million dollar practices that are putting up numbers. And yes, as a surprise, they will be speaking there as well. And Dr. Kaplan asked me for one slide tonight. Dr. K, would you be so kind to talk a little bit about this here? Because you asked me for one slide. And the reason—
Yeah, I did. And I'm going to run through that, in October, for those of you that are not registered, okay, there are a few things I'm going to let you know. First of all, Grammy-nominated singer Monique McCall will be there. And she will sing the most beautiful song. And then, I'm not going to mention names, but we might have a surprise guest. And that's why we have a limit to the amount of people that the property will allow. So I'm not mentioning names, but time, weather, and circumstance permitting, we might have a special guest, which is, a relationship that we've had with a certain family for many, many, many years. And when we talk about the Dr. LaRusso, he talked about the power of certification and why. Can you put the slide back up?
Yeah, 100%. You bet. Absolutely.
And the reason that he did this, and he did the last Zoom meeting with us, and we try to always educate our doctors. Think about what I'm going to tell you here, doctors. There's 30,000 plus chiropractors in America. And what I always ask when I tell Perry, when we talk later, how were there not 30,000 people on this Zoom meeting? How were there not 20,000? I'm providing my time, my energy, my effort for free. And there are chiropractors out there starving to death and they don't know why. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they're too busy being salesmen, saleswomen, salespeople, and not better doctors. And let me tell you why. Dr. Russo said pointedly that being certified by equipment company is not enough. Disc injuries are one of the two most common reasons that people are sued for malpractice, which is why, if anybody challenges, call Wayne Wolfson, the president of NCMIC, and ask him who the kings of decompression are, and he'll mention names of Kaplan and Bard. And what he loves is years and years, other companies, equipment companies, do their programs, but it's only through their equipment. We don't care if you have a Kennedy table. I don't care if you have a Chattanooga table. I don't care if you have an AcuSpinal table, a DRX table, a Spine Med or Doc table, and I'll go on. But what you need to know is to be certified through a university is important, because the first question that they would ask you in a malpractice case, as Dr. Russo said, is who certified you? To be university certified is germane in keeping yourself out of hot water. And in that, we're going to talk about many studies that you need to have and to be certified. And I asked Dr. Russo, what if they're certified once? He said, not enough. The more hours, the better you look. So I take a guy like, oh God, and I talk about Dr. Carrie Gerges. I think if we've been doing this for 10 years, he's certified 10 times. If I've been doing this for 12 years, and that's why he gets a lot of medical referrals. You know, doctors, I always ask the questions I get near the end. What is one new patient worth for you? You know, and I talk to my son all the time. He gets referrals from medical doctors. Wouldn't that be a great thing? You see, it's not the Hatfields versus the McCoys anymore. You know, when you start talking about the Feinberg study, the Murphy study, the Stark study, the Barron and Binder study, the Berry study, the Roshbaum study, when you start mentioning these studies, they realize that you're just not a doctor, but that you're an expert. And that's why, for those of you that don't know, and for those that you want to be involved, please text me. We are now Life University. We will be the first Disc Centers of America Life University clinic, meaning the university is going to have a disc clinic in our name, in our honor, and we're going to have that. So, and then in October, we will have the president of Life there. We will have the chairman of the board of Life there. I have certain people I've asked them to be in the Founders Club. If I've asked you and you haven't joined, shame on you. It's a very selective group. We've only chosen the best of the best. So I'm going to tell you, at Trump, we might have a special guest. This is very, very big. It's a certification. So the more hours that you have, the better prepared that you are. And what I'm saying, doctors, is don't ever be caught with your pants down in this profession. There are more lawyers than there are chiropractors. And guess what? When you're paying $1 million, $3 million, how would you like to say, not only am I certified, I'm certified from the largest chiropractic university in the world, not by the equipment company. And I'm certified 3 times, 4 times, 9, 18, 27, 32 hours. And I will tell you this, doctors, so you know, I donate my time. 100% of my time is donated to Life University, the clinic that Perry and I are doing for Life University. At Disc America, we are not charging them. It is our gift to the profession, not just to the university doctors. Why? Because the monies will go to research. And I was speaking with them yesterday, and we will be there this week. And I'm telling you, you know, doctors, don't you think it's time that chiropractors are not called the alternative care? Drugs should be alternative. Chiropractic, the philosophy, the art, the science, we're a drug-free solution to neuropathy. And if you want to learn about the neuropathy connection, and you want to learn about the Roshbaum study, the Brosler study, the Welch study, the Shea study, and more, you need to be there in October. So I you know, like I said, I'm excited for the future of our profession, but the future of the profession is dependent upon you. I'm doing my job. Now it's up to you.
So there's this incredible scientific thing that happens at the National Spinal Decompression Certification. I don't know if you figured out. I'm going to use a very big medical word with you. You ready, doctors? Tell me if you ever heard this word before. It's called osmosis. Did you ever hear that word before? Oh, I know you have. It's very simple. Dr. Kaplan and I have a very simple formula. We put you around the best doctors on the planet. I'm not just talking about the doctors that are making the most money. Oh yeah, they're there too. in volume. Numbers that would make your mandible drop to the very to the floor and beyond. I mean, I'm hearing numbers of our doctors that are just It's good to be at this Centers of America Center. That's all I can tell you. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. But we know this. If we put you around the best doctors with the best training, who have the best intent, the best love, the best passion, the best ability to give, love, and serve, yeah, that's a lasting purpose. If you've been to Life University, you know all about that. It's such an honor. Dr. Kaplan and I at 7 a.m. on Thursday, in less than 48 hours, we'll be on a plane heading up to the university to do a walkthrough of their outpatient center, their clinic, as it converts exclusively to the first ever Centers of America outpatient university-based clinic. Thank you, Dr. Harris. You're the coolest, man. You are the coolest. I'm so glad. Remember, you're going to call me tomorrow. I want to share something with you on the phone privately that is, listen, under promise, over deliver. I learned that from Dr. Kaplan early in the game. And, we were on the call before. And I'm going to leave the doctors with this. And I said, Dr. K, I said, do you know why I love being with you? Do you know why I love this journey? Do you know why I love 38 years of goodness, greatness, togetherness? You know why? And he said, why? I said, he said, why? And I said, I'll tell you why. I said, because you're the living, breathing example of the way it should be. You're the living, breathing example of goodness. You are the torch carrier for this profession. It's not. And Dr. Harris, you make my heart so so fulfilled, brother. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 sons. All of them are doctors. And all of them will be there live at the National Spinal Decompression Certification to grow, to be, to do, to have, just like all of you. You'll meet them. They'll meet you. You want to put yourself around goodness, greatness, and more. And it is such an honor for us because, Dr. Kaplan and I said this is about paying it forward. And when Life University came to us to do this, we were honored. So this will be, what does this do for the profession? It makes Life University the go-to school for future chiropractors that want to study spinal disc disease. And yes, we're bringing in the best lecturers there. So these students will be totally empowered when they come out, ready to hit the ground running. It is so exciting. So I'm going to leave everybody with these words. I said, Dr. K, I said, you know what you're about, brother? And he said, what? I said, you're about this one statement. Tell me if you've ever heard this before, doctor, is that the comeback is always better than the setback. All the doctors that I'm looking at have had setbacks in your life. You wouldn't have been here tonight if you didn't know how to overcome, if you didn't know how to battle, if you didn't know how to fight, if you didn't know how to find that extra gear. And it's such an honor to look at Dr. Harris and Dr. Zalecki, and Dr. Schisler and Dr. Matthias and Dr. Roach in your Milwaukee Brewers uniform right there, brother. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, popping the champagne is what I'm talking about all the way. And if you know our son and you know one of our son's dearest best friends, he was popping champagne there with the goggles on in that locker room. And, there's always more to the story. The great Dr. Lincoln. I can go on and on. Dr. Shane, incredible in Wyoming. And congratulations, Dr. Shane. We cannot wait to see you. Ring of Honor. You know what I mean? And so much more. This is such a great opportunity for doctors. But just never forget that it's all about the comeback. And the comeback, trust me, is better than the setback. If you don't have a seat, I promise you it will be completely sold out. The countdown is on. It is now. We are now 1 month away and counting. Yes, check the calendar. October 25th, Decompression Certified is where you get your seats. And if you don't have a seat, this is probably your last chance to get it. And if you do have a seat, OMG, oh my gosh, we're going to blow your mind. Dr. Kaplan, I thought he's pretty good at secrets. He's holding on to that secret. He almost tipped the hand a little bit, but it's going to be so much fun. He was blowing my mind today. He was telling me what's going on. And if you only knew what goes on behind the curtain, you're going to see what goes on exactly behind the curtain on October 25th. As you come back to your office with a game plan, a strategy, a focus, an energy, an enthusiasm, a commitment, a love to be able to do something you've never done before, help more patients than you've ever helped before, save patients from all this bad stuff out there, and put yourself in a room with the best neurologists, the best orthopedic surgeons, the best neuroradiologists, and pound for pound, the best chiropractors on the planet. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will see you live, fingers crossed, if you're able to get a seat on October 25th at the National Spinal Decompression Certification. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see you.